Hello and welcome to the award-winning Tough Girl podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. Today, I'm thrilled to announce a special collaboration with INOV8, a world-renowned and ambitious sportswear pioneer. INOV8 will be sponsoring the Tough Girl podcast throughout the month of June, with new episodes going live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. INOV8 is a UK-based company, and it is their mission to empower the world's physical and mental fitness through more fulfilling sporting experiences. I've been wearing INOV8 trainers and sportswear since 2019 on all my adventures and challenges around the world. Most recently over in New Zealand while I walked the Tiara Trail, and in Spain when I was on the Camino Viva de la Plata. With INOV8 support, I'm able to continue showcasing incredible female role models who take on adventures and physical challenges. Stay tuned for an incredible episode filled with stories, insights, top tips and advice to motivate and inspire you. To find out more about INOV8, visit the Tough Girl website or search INOV8 Sportswear online. You can also use the discount code ToughGirl15, ToughGirl15 to get 15% off your next order.
I'm Sarah Perry. I'm currently based in Cumbria, kind of like very near to the Fells. I'm a teacher. I used to be a primary teacher, did that for sort of about 10 years. Now I'm in adult education, which I love. I do a little bit of running too, and kind of longer distance is my thing. My most recent run was the Southwest Coastal Path, which was the longest run that I've ever done. Yeah,
and we are definitely going to be talking about that. And you've been very modest, and I know it can be hard to share like some of your accomplishments, but you have just set a new record on the Southwest Coast Path. You ran, it's staggering, like 630 miles. So it's the Southwest Coast Path is the longest national trail in England. Its starting point is in Poole Harbour in Dorset, and its final destination is like Minehead in Somerset. It is the ascent and descent is approximately 115,000 feet, which is 4 times the height of Everest. And you ran this in a mind-blowing 13 days, 11 hours and 31 minutes. And you not only set a new women's record, but you also set a new record for the fastest overall self-supported completion. So incredible. So we are going to be talking about your running, and especially sort of the longer distances. But you mentioned that you're based in Cumbria at the moment. Is that where you grew up?
No, so I grew up in Yorkshire. I was based in York, and I kind of moved here a couple of years ago. I think, like you find with lots of people, it was that lockdown period that was the decider for us. We knew that we wanted to be somewhere greener, and yeah, the hills have our heart really. So that's how we ended up here. But yeah, I grew up in Yorkshire.
Did you have any like siblings, or were you like an only child? And were you into running from quite a young age?
So yeah, I've got a brother, an older brother. There's about 6 years difference, so we're quite competitive. He used to do a bit of running too, and I think we came into running because we did a lot of walking when we were children. Kind of all of our family holidays were either in the lakes or Wales or Scotland, and it would always be kind of like mountain based. We'd do lots of walking in the hills. I think that's where we both got our love of the outdoors really. And then probably like my late teens, early 20s, I started running the routes that we used to walk when we were kids. I don't think I always had a healthy balance with running. I think like when I first started running, it wasn't a good relationship with it really. I think I was running to like burn off calories and earn food, and I think it just it developed from there. I think now I have a really healthy relationship with exercise, but I think that's something that I've had to kind of learn, if that makes sense.
Yeah. When did you realize that, or have you, especially, when going through your teenage years, that actually, or when did you get to the point where you were like, actually, hold on, this is not a healthy relationship. This is not a healthy balance with the running and, trying to burn off calories. And when did you decide to make a change?
You know what? I don't think I ever, this is like a really like odd. I guess I don't think I ever did make a conscious decision. I think what I've learned, like it's easy to look back on things, isn't it, and think actually that wasn't very healthy. But I don't think I actually ever made a conscious decision. I think in my early 20s, I was in a really toxic relationship too. I didn't enjoy my job, and it was just like this awful cycle of like trying to gain control somewhere. But it's not now until I've moved on from that and I've got a much better work-life balance. I'm in a happy relationship. It's not until I kind of moved away from it that I can look back on it and think, actually, that really wasn't good. So I don't think I ever did make a conscious decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so I'm 42, and I think people almost forget that actually your 20s can be really hard because if you finish like the structure of school, like GCSEs, A levels, whether, going on to university or not. And then suddenly you're in the world of work and you're trying to navigate that. Then you're trying to navigate relationships, your early 20s, like you feel or I certainly felt like I should have this all figured out. And actually,
Yeah.
it's a hugely stressful, stressful
It's
period.
massive, isn't it? And nobody really supports you with that. In a way, I'm not saying that, but yeah, nobody acknowledges that enough, I don't think.
It was interesting. I did an interview with one of my old school friends for the Tough Girl podcast, and we were talking about like our 20s and like the stuff that she revealed to me, and I was actually just like, I can't believe I didn't know this when we were in our early 20s. We were in London, because I found it hugely difficult, but just assumed that everyone else was doing super super well and super happy.
Yeah.
Almost talked about it, but then sometimes you're so busy having like your head down, like trying to figure out all the things, work, relationships, being in a home, whether you're sharing with other people or sharing with a partner, and paying bills, and there's just a lot going on. Have you ran pretty consistently then, sort of, from your teenage years?
Yeah, I think pretty much. Just kind of like seem to build up the mileage, and yeah, like in my late 20s, I think I used it as an escape. Like it was a good excuse to have a few hours out of the house, and it's like cheesy, isn't it? But you almost use it as a tool for finding yourself, and yeah, just having that little bit of hobby and a little bit of headspace. Because I've always loved the outdoors, but I think adding that sense of achievement and the endorphin hit, it's a pretty addictive combination, really, isn't it? And I think, yeah, I don't like, even now, I don't have, some people are super structured, aren't they, with what they do. And I run for the love of it and how it makes me feel, and getting outside in the hills with my dog. I'd do that any day over hill sessions or whatever.
Have you done sort of like a half marathon, and ultra races, or is that not really like your cup of tea?
No, I've never done like any road races or any like marathons or anything like that. I've done some ultra races. It's not what I love. I think what I really love is just getting out there, and I think there's a time for like racing against the clock, even if you are doing things self-supported. But I think my favourite thing to do is just be out there and not be looking at the clock, just more like adventures, I guess.
So you set a new British backyard ultra record, and was that in 2024?
Yes, it was March, I think. It was Rasselbach. So yeah, not too long ago. Um, yeah, I think it was 40 something yards, which isn't, it's actually, nothing even close to what some people are running at backyards. I don't know if you saw the Suffolk one. I think they ran something like 80 something yards. A huge, huge amount. I think there's definitely going to be some women that are going to break that soon. I hope they do, because 40, 42 or whatever it is nothing really.
For people who are thinking backyard ultra, or a British backyard ultra. I don't know if they're different from the backyard ultras in America. Is this like a new thing that has come out? Like, when did you first hear about it? When did you think, oh, actually, this sounds pretty fun?
I think it's been around for a good few years now. I can't remember when I did my first one, but I did one in Wales, maybe a few years ago, and I think they were relatively new then. And I thought that that might be a good kind of testing ground for me because I know that I can just zone out and run boring miles. And I kind of knew I had a bit of endurance. So I thought I'd just kind of give them a go and see what happened. Yeah, they're really, really interesting. It's a really interesting format. I really enjoy it.
Do you want to share more about the format? What does that look like?
Rounded up, it's 4.2 miles per lap. And you go out on the hour, every hour, until there's one person left, basically, and then they'll run one more loop on their own. So basically, everyone else is a DNF apart from the person who runs the most laps.
Like psychologically, I think this is really, I don't know, there's the psychological element, but also there's the tactics. Like, do you run faster initially to have a longer break? Do you try and be consistent? What are your tactics for a backyard ultra? Like, do you have tactics, or are they just more like, are you just more flexible and like, let's just go with the flow. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, you do see people trying to play a game. You see people coming in really quickly or going, really slowly for one lap, try and make you think that they're nearly done. I just like get my head down and do my own thing, just really consistent, jogging in, like 52 minutes for each lap. 8 minutes is usually 8 to 10 minutes is enough to have something to eat, get myself sorted, but not too long that you're gonna be waiting for ages and get cold. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really interesting, yeah, especially when you're down to kind of the last few and everyone wants to stop, don't they? So everyone's looking at each other, looking for signs that they're gonna keel over. um, I guess, yeah. Just if you're coming in strong every time, looking strong and showing no signs of weakness, no signs of wanting to stop. I guess that's a tactic, isn't it?
Yeah. Because in a way, like it was obviously good having other people there. It's like, like it's almost like a measurement. How are other people doing? You can compare yourself to them. But also, in a way, it doesn't really matter what other people are doing. If you're so focused on your race, your running, knowing what works for you. And so you said, running for, about 50 to 52 minutes. You have an 8 or 10 minute rest where you will eat and get yourself sorted. During that sort of 8 to 10 minutes, what does that look like? Do you have someone there to support you? Are you drinking electrolytes, a protein shake? Are you eating proper food? Like, do you have, what does that look like?
So for the one I did, the recent one I did, Rasselbach, I didn't have any support. So there was like it's kind of a section of the tent split off for people who didn't have support, so they could lay out all of the things on the tables, and it'll just be different every lap, really. So I'll like as I'm running in, I'll have a little mental list of what I need to do. I might need to change my socks or have something to eat, have some electrolytes. But it's backyards are always really nice, and that there's always a really nice vibe. So in that tent that I was in at Rasselbach, in that 10 minutes, we're all having a chat and like having a laugh. It wasn't like we were all staring each other down and refusing to talk. It is a nice vibe. And I always think with backyards too, it's a great idea if you want to run further than you've ever run before. So like some people do the first ultras at backyards or like the first like marathon distance. And I think that's really important to say because it's not just we're not running until we drop.
What was the furthest that you had run before you did the Rasselbach ultramarathon?
I think 200 maybe 50, 60 miles because I'd done Llanlass across Wales last October. So yeah, I knew I could go the distance. I think the thing with Rasselbot was a little bit different for me because I knew I didn't have support, so I had to drive. It was only a few hours drive back, but I knew I had to be in a state that I could drive myself back and get back to work later in the week. So it was it was a funny one. I didn't want to run until I dropped, in a way, because if you drop, it's then, you how are you going to get yourself back? This is the reality of life, really, isn't it? It's not all just running and got to work and live too.
With the sort of the reset every 4 miles, when you get back on that start line, do you have any rituals or habits or words that you say to yourself or anything that you do to sort of be like, okay, next 4 miles, let's go?
I just stay in the zone. I'm never thinking about, oh gosh, I wonder how far I'm gonna have to run, or here we go again. It's like just very much that's what I'm doing. And I'm not thinking of the bigger picture. Like I'm thinking of those small things like, oh, I'll take a flapjack with me this time, or like, I might need a hat because it's sunny. Like I'm not thinking about the bigger picture. And I think if I ever got to the point where I was like, oh, okay, here we go, we've got to run another 4, then my head's probably not in the game and it's probably not my day.
So when did you become an INOV8 ambassador?
I think I've been with them for maybe like a year and a half now, so not too long. But yeah, it's great company to work with, and I feel like all the kit like really complements what I do because mostly I'm kind of in the hills with being based in the lake.
What are your favourite trainers to wear?
So I really love the trail flies because I think they're almost like a road to trail. So they're perfect for like mixed terrain, and that's what I want on the Southwest Coastal Path. Although, if I was going to pick a fell shoe, it would be the Mud Talon Speed. I just think they're so light and fast and grippy.
So did you wear the trail fly on the Southwest Coast Path?
Yeah,
Oh, amazing, amazing. So
yeah.
let's talk about the Southwest Coast Path.
Okay.
So, I obviously, I shared a few of the stats, 630 miles, 4 times the height of Mount Everest. It's very up and downy.
Yep.
How long had you been thinking about doing this as a challenge? And when did you decide to commit?
So I actually attempted the Southwest Coastal Path last summer, so a year ago, and I think I got to about day 3, and then I had an injury and I had to stop. But in any way, I just had my partner Luke supporting me, and it was really hard for him to support me on his own. It was so busy because it was the school holidays, so he couldn't get parked, so he wasn't able to meet me where he said he would meet me. And then obviously because of that, it's like you're slipping behind on your nutrition, and your fluids. And I wasn't prepared for that, because I hadn't planned for that. I didn't know where I was going to get water next if he wasn't going to meet me. So I came away from that and I had to think about what I was going to do. I told you a little bit with going self-supported again. We're going self-supported, but just thought, no, it's too big. It's too big for that. It needs to be supported. And then it was probably like around December time, Luke got a different job and he couldn't get the holidays anymore to support me. And that was the decider, really. I was going to go self-supported. So I had a few months to kind of put all the planning in and decide how it was going to work.
Let's talk about that planning. So self-supported, how did you plan this? Like, are you using spreadsheets, to-do lists? Like, how detailed did you need to be? Or is it just a case of figuring out how to get to the start and how to get away from the finish and you'll figure out the rest on the way? Or were you much more meticulous than that?
So I had a very detailed spreadsheet and everything went into there. So I'd planned out kind of how far I expected to go in each day. And that's the tricky part, isn't it? Because on paper, you can easily say, yes, I can do 50 miles a day. And it's hard, isn't it? That is the hard part, because if you are off schedule and you've, like, say, said that you're going to stay here, you're going to go to this shop and fill up, and that doesn't work because of times, then your plan's scuppered, isn't it? I think that's probably the sitting down and doing that planning is probably like the hardest part. But I'd kind of all, because there's also 15, maybe 16 ferry crossings on the southwest coastal path, and some of those like only operate like say between 10 and 2. So it was a case of figuring all that out, putting the ferry crossings in, deciding where I could fill up with food, top up water. It was almost like I'd lived out the adventure through that spreadsheet before I'd even stepped foot on the coastal path. It was like I lived and breathed that spreadsheet for 3 months. Like I'd wake up in the night and think, oh, I just checked that or I just had that. But I think that spreadsheet was part of my success, really. I don't know how anyone could just turn up and hope for the best. I just don't think they're aware.
Costs for taking this on.
Mm.
Were you working with a set budget? Do you know how much you spent?
I didn't have a set budget, but it definitely cost me more than I thought it would, because I'd actually booked Airbnbs for most nights, and then kind of all of your day-to-day costs. I think it was probably the day-to-day costs which surprised me the most. Like if you're going to the co-op or whatever a couple of times a day and filling your bag, it all adds up, doesn't it? And I think it's a really good question, because it's something that a lot of people don't think about. And I know that I am really privileged that I can just, one, have the time to go, and two, have the resources to do it. I do. I feel really privileged.
We've got like the planning side, you've got the ultimate spreadsheet, 3 months of your life into that spreadsheet. But then the two other aspects of taking on a challenge like this are going to be like the mental side of the challenge, and then also the physical side of the challenge. So we start with the physical side. So the training, what did that look like? Was it purely running? Were you following a program? Were you working with a coach? Were you doing anything extra? Were you doing yoga, mobility training, strength and conditioning? What did that look like so that you knew that you were, not going to get injured again, that you were physically at the peak of your health?
I don't work with a coach. There was nothing, specific. There wasn't a specific plan. It was my job just to make sure, like you say, that I was strong. I wanted to feel strong. I wanted to feel like, I think, another thing that plays into this is I think I almost needed to fail that first time in order to know, what it was going to take to go again. And I did like just lots of time in the hills, lots of back-to-back days, which happens to be, lucky for me, that's what I love to do. A little bit of strength and conditioning, nothing wild, nothing at the gym, just at home. Yeah, I just went into it feeling stronger.
I love the fact that it's like the training back to back. Most people are like, oh, back to back, and you're like, I love it. It's like, yeah, that's my thing.
It feels like cheating, because like sometimes I feel lazy. Like everybody's, on Instagram proving how hard they work with their sessions and on the treadmill, and I'm just messing about in the hills.
Are you doing like sprint training or anything? Are you finding a hill and being like, right, I'm going to run up and down this like 10 times or anything like that? Or...
Yeah, I do a little bit of that. Like I'll do some hill sessions. I'll do some like structured things. I do a little bit of structured stuff. I shouldn't say that I don't, but that is just like, it's a little slice of my week, and most of the time I'm doing the stuff that I want to do.
So if you were to talk us through a training week, you are working full time as well. What does that look like? Are you running in the morning, at lunchtime, in the evenings?
It'll just vary, really. The way my kind of schedule works, because I teach adults, I usually have kind of either a morning, an afternoon, or an evening class. Like some days I'll have a morning class and then an evening class. So I'll run in the afternoon. My partner works 4 on, 4 off too. So if he's off and I've got an afternoon, we'll go out into the hills and go for a long run. So like no week looks the same. Usually lots of time out, places that I want to be. Just a mix, really. Like, I think that's the thing that when I say there's no real structure, I'll get my hill session in. And if there's anything else structured that I want to do, I'll get that in. But other than that, it's just like, where should we go? I quite like to go to these hills or, run around the lake, or, yeah, we just go to places that we want to visit, or if there's any recce's that we want to do, that sort of thing.
So mentally or psychologically, like especially I suppose in the run up to this, the first time you attempted, got injured, learned some lessons, went back earlier this year. Do you do anything like specific in terms of, is it visualization, like mantras, like you mentioned, like zoning out? What's going on inside your head? Or like, did you get anxious before before you take on a challenge? And how do you deal with like maybe feelings of uncertainty or worry and you may not have those feelings. You may just.
It's really interesting to think about it, because I think before this challenge, it was bigger than anything I'd ever done before. There's a high risk of failure. I was worried. I thought a lot about like things like safety too, because I knew that some of the sections that I'd run through the previous year, I knew that they weren't all great places for a solo female to be. I thought about that a lot, because I am very much like, I want to control the controllables, but everything that is out of my control, like it made me anxious thinking about it. I didn't have anything specific that, like, no ways to deal with that apart from like trying to control it. So, can I make sure that I go through those places that I'm worried about in daylight? Like, what else can I do? Other than that, I think I just embrace the fact that I can't control things and it's okay to worry about it. And the thing is, often you'll find that the things that you worry about the most then don't end up being the things that you need to worry about. But I guess like on the trail, I did kind of zone out a lot. I think I do visualize. I think in order to start something, you've got to be able to visualize yourself finishing. And I think when it got tough sometimes, I just thought about the end goal, thought about what I was doing and why I was there, and just tried to either break it down into something smaller, like, oh, but you're going to be able to stop here and like restock, or, you're going to be able to have a little sleep here. Or I did visualize a lot. I thought, you've not come away for this much time away from your family, away from your home, away from, everything that you love, to just do a half job. You see what I mean?
Let's go back to the Southwest Coast Path and, reflecting back on that journey, on that challenge, setting a new record, which is just incredible. What was the biggest challenge that you faced? You look back now thinking, I don't know how I got through that day or that section, or I dealt with X, Y, and Z. What was some of those challenges?
I think it was like something almost every day that I had to contend with. The weather was awful for the most part. The mud, oh gosh, the mud was just, you couldn't even run through it. At some point, you were just like sliding around. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, we can't do this every day, because it was just energy zapping. And, it was the sort of thing that I just thought, I'm not going to tell anyone about this, because they won't understand, they won't believe how bad it was. I think there was one day where I think by that time I was off schedule massively, and because of that, I'd missed the one shop or the one stop that was on. It was like a really remote section. It was like the only section where there was only going to be one stop, and I'd missed the stop. So by the end of that section, I was just tired, hungry, thirsty. I'd drunk all my water. I'd eaten my like reserve food. And I was just like, oh, just like this is awful. Why have I come away to do this? That feeling of like, I'd chosen this. Why?
How did you get past that? Like, how did you push on through? Like, what did you do?
I knew that when I got to my next stop, because I had turned up it was a little B&B. I turned up like a whole day late. I was only to check in 12, and then I was there the next day at 12. And they were really nice to let me in. I had a quick shower, charged my phone and my head torch and everything, had something to eat. And I just knew if I got to Clovelly, I was able to have that little reset and fill up and just start again. And I think the saving grace with that was I was quite far on at that point. So if I remember correctly, I think I had maybe 2 more days left. So it's that feeling of like you've come this far, like just keep going.
Talk us through one of the highlights. Did you have many magical moments like on the trail, or was it all head down, rain, mud, British weather? I'm missing shops
No.
closing and yeah.
Do you know what? It's such a beautiful path, and there were so many like places that just felt nobody else had ever visited. Like they obviously had, but you just when you've got it to yourself, and it's like early morning or late at night, and you've got a sunset or a sunrise, and it was just stunning. There was so many parts that were so beautiful, and so many parts too where it was just, I'd completely zoned out of what I was doing, and it was just like just enjoying the countryside and just running. And I said, one of my friends met me at the end, and the first thing I said to her was, "I'm going to tell you now that there was more like positive moments than there was negative." And I don't know why that was the first thing I wanted to say to her, but I think I just wanted to make it cement that that had been the case. And looking back on it, I don't know, I can only see all of the awful things, but no, there was loads of positives. And like I said, it was so lucky to be able to do that, aren't we? And like I think I did, I think I was overwhelmed with a sense of like gratitude that I got to do that, and I got to spend some time just immersed in that.
This is a phenomenal achievement. Like, how did you celebrate? Like, when did it sink in that holy heck, you got a new record, which is amazing.
Oh, it was really funny actually, because that last day, it's like I knew I was closing in on it. I knew I had it in the bag, like nothing was gonna stop me finishing. And I had, this beautiful sunset. And it just felt like, when you have that moment where you're immersed in it, and it's like, oh, this is beautiful, but also it's going to come to an end soon, and I don't know if I'm quite ready for that, but I kind of am. And then the last kind of 20 or so miles after that sunset, they were awful. Like, do you know how you visioned it for so long? You visioned it every day, and it's just not what you imagined. The wind is howling, the rain is just like absolutely driving, and it's like that last 20 miles just took forever. And I just remember like I was almost to the point where I think I was so tired I was confused, and I was just stumbling around like, please make this stop. And I know it's awful really, isn't it? It's like we were talking about gratitude, but I was past it. I think if I was in a race I would have been pulled out. I don't think I was in any like fit state. So I finished, and my lovely friend was waiting at the end for me, and I was just it wasn't how I imagined it. But I think it took a while. I think like I travelled home, and yeah, it took a while to process it all. I think 'cause it was so much bigger than anything I'd ever done, and it took, it was such a long time. Like it almost felt like it was, I don't know, like an out of body experience, lots of it. So I think I just had to dig so deep and I don't know, like I can't even describe it, but yeah, I think that's the best way I can describe it. That it almost felt like an out of body experience.
Sarah, are you on social media? Do you share anything on like Instagram or Facebook?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best place to find me.
What's your handle?
Sarah Perry, 1991 7.
1991 7.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, nothing. I couldn't think of anything.
Is that the year and then the month of your?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, have you got any other challenges planned for this year or any other future goals that you think that you're sort of wanting to work towards at some point?
So I've got the 13 Valleys Ultra race in September. Next year, I think I've got the spine, a winter spine, and I'd like to do a Wainwright's round at some point.
Oh, amazing. So, winter, is that Montaigne? Yeah, Montaigne Winter
Yeah,
Spine Race.
yeah,
Is that January?
yeah.
Oh, how are you in the cold and the snow?
The snow and the cold, I think I'll be okay with. Yeah, I think for people, like do self-supported challenges, I think the spine's pretty much self-supported, isn't it? So it won't be far from maybe what we kind of do. I don't know. What do you think?
It's going to be amazing. I think you're going to crush it. I think, yeah, you've got the experience, you've got the fitness, you've got the mental side, you've got the ability to plan and think things through in advance. I think all of that is going to play to your strengths. And the fact that if we go back to when we talked about the running, like, back to back running, you always feel like it's cheating because you love doing back to back running. And it's like,
Yeah.
you're going to be doing back to back running. Well, just constantly running, constantly running. Incredible, incredible challenges. Sarah, honestly, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you. And I'd love for you to have actually the final words, words of advice for other women who want to take their running to the next level. So whether that is taking on a backyard ultra, whether that is doing, a multi-day running self-supported challenge. It doesn't have to be the Southwest Coast Path, but maybe, it's a smaller trail closer to home. I suppose just some key words of advice from you, apart from just do it. What would you like to share?
I think what I've learned is that we should dream big because we're almost definitely more capable than we know or think. So yeah, and don't forget the spreadsheet.
Yeah, don't forget the spreadsheet. Do your planning. Do your planning. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on Tough Girl Podcast. It's been incredible to speak to you. Just massive congratulations on your incredible record on the Southwest Coast Path, and best of luck with all of your future challenges. We will be following along and watching those dots as you race.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on.
Hey Tribe, I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Sarah Perry. What an absolute inspiration. What a challenge. It is mind-boggling what she has achieved in ultra running. Just absolutely phenomenal. Now, there is actually a few connections with the Southwest Coast Path, which I want to share with you. So firstly, when I was out in New Zealand, I was down in the South Island and I was running through this sort of 9-day running. Sorry, I was not running through this section. I was hiking through this section in the Richmond Ranges. And this is quite a difficult, challenging section because you are out in the wilderness. You're staying at huts. There's a lot of elevation gain and loss. It's pretty hard going, to be saying. And most people would do about sort of 2 huts. So you'd leave your hut, you'd arrive at the next hut, maybe stop there for lunch, and then you carry on to the next hut. So you will have done 2 huts in a day. And I arrived at this hut. I was walking with a guy called Bertie at this point, and we arrived at this very cool mountain hut. And it was just the 2 of us, and we were having some dinner and stuff. Then a couple of American people arrived who were walking the other direction. You had some nice chats with them. At about 9 o'clock that evening, we could see a head torch coming up, and this guy arrived, and I heard the accent. It was a British accent. So, everyone was still up then. So we were having a little chat, oh my God, where have you come from? this guy, he's called David Meyer. He'd come from 4 huts behind. So where I'd started that morning, he'd already done that. And where I'd started the previous day, that is where he had started from. He'd done over 50 kilometers through this terrain, an absolute beast. But we started chatting, and one of the things that we started chatting about was he was wearing an INOV8 Storm Shell waterproof jacket. So I was like, INOV8, love them. And we started sort of bonding over it. And when you're chatting with somebody like this, he was so humble, so nice. And I was just like, he's got to have done more. He's got to have done more. Because like, oh, what did you do for the North Island? Oh, mountain bike the North Island. Oh, what are your plans for the South Island? Oh, I'm going to be running it. How long do you think it will take you? He's like, oh, maybe about like 23 days. And I was actually like, 23 days. I budgeted like 64 days for my challenge. This is obviously not a comparison, but I'm just trying to give you that information to just let you know like the distances that he was covering. But what was so nice is when we got into the next town, this little alpine village, we ended up having sort of a pizza together. I got a photo of him. You can check it out on my Instagram. And just so lovely. And I think so that was the connection. But there was no. So what I wanted to say about David was, I was thinking, he must have done some special stuff. So we were talking about like INOV8, where he lived, like down in Cornwall. And I was just out of interest. I was like, oh, have you ever done the Southwest Coast Path? And he was like, oh, yeah, I ran it. And I was like, oh my God, wow, that's incredible. What time did you do it in? And he did it in around 13 days. So the guy I met in New Zealand was the guy that Sarah has just beaten the record for running self-supported. There is another man's record out there for somebody who did it supported. So, had all of a team doing it. And that record's about 11 days, but self-supported is around the 13-day mark. So I was just sort of like, blown away. Possibly that was one of the reasons, or not the reasons, but that was possibly one of the points where maybe the seed got planted for me to do the Southwest Coast Path, not to run it, but to walk it and to hike it. And actually that's what I'm going to be doing this year. So I'm going to be heading off at the beginning of August. I'm going to be heading down to Poole Harbour and walking the 630 miles around to Minehead in Somerset. But actually what I'm going to do when I get to Minehead, Somerset, is I'm not actually going to stop there. I'm going to continue on. I think it's like another 130 miles and head along to Bristol and then over to Wales to Chepstow. And the reason I want to do that is that then it will reconnect me with the Wales Coast Path and Offers Dyke, which I've both walked before. You can watch those vlogs on the Tough Girl YouTube channel. But I feel as though it then sort of connects up this whole massive section of the UK, which I'm really quite excited about. So those are my plans in August around the Southwest Coast Path. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you, Sarah mentioned that while she was running, she had 2 pairs of favorite trainers, and one of the trainers that she talked about was the Mud Talon trainers, Mud Talon Speed. They're £130. So I haven't actually ever worn these shoes, but I've got some information about the shoes which I want to share with you. So if you want to master the mud, you can do so in the Mud Talon Speed, which is a shoe built for running fast over soft ground trails and muddy hills. It's built on the worldwide success of the iconic X-Talon and Mud Claw ranges. So the Mud Talon Speed brings together the best of both to take grip, comfort and performance to new levels. So you've probably seen INOV8's new logo. That is like a talon. So that's how it all sort of collects. Mud Talon Speed. So it's got the sticky grip outsole, and the Mud Talon Speed has an 8mm long lugs for gouging through mud. It's uniquely positioned. These talon-like lugs then release the mud just as quickly. So the sticky grip rubber will also cling to wet rock, giving the ultimate grip for hill, fell or mountain running. The shoe has the perfect blend of cushioning and bounce. It's provided by a super light Powerflow Pro midsole foam that works in combination with the boomerang footbed. This amazing underfoot comfort and propulsion is built in such a way to still allow for the ground feel you need when running over uneven, hazardous terrain. So if you are interested in the Mud Talon, if you're going to be, that you're going to be running in the mud, that you're going to be heading out into the mountains doing hill running or fell running, then please do check out the Mud Talon Speed trainers. They will be absolutely phenomenal for you. Like with all trainers, make sure that they do fit your feet. There's 2 options size wide with these ones. There's a Precision Fit if you have narrow feet, and also if you just like a closer sort of more secure feel. And then there's also the wide fit. So the biggest difference between the 2 fits is in the width at the toe box, with the wide fit being wider. But you can use the discount code ToughGirl15 to get 15% off your trainers. Just use ToughGirl15 when you check out. Visit INOV8's website, inov8.com, to find out more about all of their trainers, all of their running gear, such as the Storm Shell, waterproof jackets, which I've mentioned, the Mud Talon trainers, and other shoes that they have available. New episodes of the Tough Girl podcast this month are going live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.